Hello, Galaxy! I'm Chris Pirillo, and you've tuned in to another live edition of the Locker Gnome Daily Report, or TLDR for short. Today is going to be very, very, very special because I'm going to be talking about Star Wars. I know, I do that every day, but I was planning on doing the Force Awakens review on Friday after having seen the film 3 times. The first time was great, the second time was even better, and the third time was back-to-back with the second time, which kind of makes me feel like I've only seen the movie twice. I did not see it really over the past couple of days, and I am jonesing for it. You will have to pardon my slight attenuation in energy, if only because A, it is Monday morning, and B, I was up late anyway, playing Star Wars Battlefront on a double points weekend. I think I'm up to like level 32 or 33 or something. I was just chatting here. This is live.pirillo.com. Nothing but Star Wars. It was a good song. Did you see Oscar Isaac's cover singing that song? He's a good singer. Wow, not just one of the best pilots in the galaxy, no doubt about it. Okay, so this video, in case you're wondering, is going to be very long. I have a feeling it's going to be longer than the actual movie. 1. 2, it's going to be filled with spoilers. So if you don't like spoilers, you haven't seen the movie yet, don't watch this video. In fact, if you haven't seen the movie, if you don't plan on seeing the movie, don't watch this video. I'm telling you, outright. This is your time to hit stop. I'm very, very grateful to have the support of all of my patrons, courtesy of chrispirillo.com. And I'll be getting to showcase some of their names in the duration, or at some point during this particular live broadcast. In the duration of the broadcast, I think is what I was trying to say. I don't know. Maybe I need another sip from my first cup of coffee. I've got some notes that I've posted. I shared these with my patrons Friday when I couldn't get the live stream to work for some reason. So they've had a sneak peek to everything that was in my head. I have not been openly sharing a lot. I actually plan on doing other reviews or having other deep discussions about The Force Awakens with several other YouTubers or content producers who love talking about Star Wars. So you've got something to look forward to if you want to hear me talking about this stuff ad nauseum, and I'm happy to. I am going to be going off my notes, which are rough. I did my best to categorize or lump them together, but if you have any questions during this live broadcast, my patrons are able to tune in live. Feel free to ask. This is the chat room at live.pirillo.com. I've been doing a lot of Battlefront lately, and so Star Wars is not going away in my life ever. It just won't. Like, other things have come in and out of my life, but Star Wars is it for me. Yes. I want emoji built in to every platform. Star Wars emoji specifically. I don't know if that's going to happen. So, one of the first things that I wrote, and this is something that I was reflecting on deeply, not being able to get The Force Awakens out of my head. I don't know if I can pass full judgment on 7 until 8 and 9 are out. So I'm likely going to be revisiting my review of 7, this review, after 8 is released. And then I'm also likely going to be revisiting it when 9 is released. Because I believe, and I may bring this up later in this particular review, that 7 can't be fully judged without seeing it or understanding it in context to the other films in this particular trilogy. And this is going to be a trilogy, 7, 8, and 9. In fact, this is what I noted later on. I'll bring it up now. I believe 7, 8, and 9 will play better back-to-back than 4, 5, and 6, or 1, 2, and 3. Now, I'm also assuming that in speaking through this review, you've seen Star Wars, you understand Star Wars, you understand enough of it. I'm not going to try to fill in some blanks and explain things that are, in my estimation, rather routine. I haven't yet figured out, well, what's the best viewing order now that this episode's out. So common questions may be a little difficult for me to address in this particular movie, or this particular review, if only because I've got a lot to go through. The reason why I said that 7, 8, and 9 will play better back-to-back is because they're being constructed in such a fashion. They're episodic, 7, 8, and 9. I think they'll play better back-to-back, certainly than 4, 5, and 6, because 4, 5, and 6 weren't constructed that way. 5 and 6 might have been, but 1, you might remember, or I'm sorry, 4, episode 4, was designed to be this film. That was it. Okay, that was it. We wanted to do more, but this is all we could do, and that was it. So the fact that we got 5 and 6 is, well, epic. It's the reason we have Star Wars as we have Star Wars today. In terms of 1, 2, and 3 playing back to back, I don't know if I necessarily see as much cohesiveness with the prequels. And I'm not hating on the prequels. This is not about hating on the prequels at all. But knowing that 7 was as good as it was, and that doesn't mean it was perfect, but the long story short, I really enjoyed the film. Can't wait to see it again. Really want to see certain parts again and again and again. So, to me, and you'll hopefully hear this kind of theme running throughout this review, it makes sense to not just spend time thinking about the film as it exists on its own. I think it's only going to have true value in context to the films that will come after it, as well as, in my humble opinion, the original trilogy. So on first view, I was so swept away by emotion after the crawl. Like, I'm just watching the crawl, and I was overwhelmed, and I think a lot of people were as well. And it was exciting to see it again. I saw it in 3D. It was absolutely worth seeing in 3D. I've not seen it in IMAX 3D, though I was invited to see it in IMAX 3D. They invited me way too late. Like, I was like, why didn't you invite me before I ordered tickets or pre-ordered? So I had assigned seats in the 3D theater. Haven't seen it in 2D. Really want to see it in 2D, but it was absolutely worth seeing in 3D, if only for a few scenes, including the opening scene. Again, gave you plenty of time for spoilers. When Poe fires the weapon and Kylo Ren stops it like midair, that scene alone made 3D worth it. Just that scene. There were a couple other scenes that, of course, were equally as fantastic, including one of the Star Destroyers kind of poking out. I mean, it was really well done, very well done, to the point where it melted away. The 3D-ness of the movie melted away, it melted into the background. So that, to me, again, was a hallmark of a good 3D film. A bad 3D film would be, something that you're watching and it just gets in the way, or like, oh my, it's 3D. Oh, that doesn't look good. It stands out. Oh yeah, I'm watching a 3D film. It was done well. I don't know how if I can explain it any other way. As I had mentioned in my spoilers, this is worthy of being called a Star Wars movie, and I, again, do not want to slag the prequels, but I honestly believe that the fans that I spoke to had such a visceral reaction. Like, they were eviscerated, or they felt eviscerated after the prequels. Like, the Phantom Menace sucked all the energy out of the room. It was like the Starkiller base, sucking the energy out of the sun that was this light that Star Wars fans had. I can't say that I had the same negative reaction to the prequels, but I believe that The Force Awakens has brought around the classic fans. It's for a lot of different reasons. I don't want to get into this because it's not a prequel slag fest, but to me, this is closer to what I think the fans were expecting with the Phantom Menace. And I felt that even in the first viewing, though I was overrun with emotion. Not just in the beginning. I'm not joking. I believe I hyperventilated. Like, I was so excited. So the first time I saw it, I had different emotional reactions in different spots than the second time I saw it. That was kind of surprising. But the first time it was kind of like I was caught up in, I'm watching a Star Wars film, that's all I was feeling. The second time I had a chance to enjoy it, certainly. But to watch the film and, have time to process things. In fact, that was the biggest problem I had in watching the film 3 times. I would stop to think about something and then miss a line of dialogue or miss something on the scene, and it happened so frequently. I couldn't stop myself from thinking, from pondering, from wondering, and this film deserves so much attention. Like I said, I'm champing at the bit to see it again. I had emotional reactions, as I said, to many things. Different things. I mentioned in the spoilers, where I had certain physical reactions, and that to me was, and I'll get to that in a bit, the hallmark again of a good film. And I've watched movies before and didn't have any reaction, or something where I wasn't jumping in the seat or moving around or squirming or tearing up or laughing or chuckling. In The Force Awakens, I mean, it really had it all. It was a smorgasbord of emotional reactions, but the surprise to me was different emotional reactions between the first and the second time that I saw it. Part of my initial reaction too, it's you don't know what's going on. There was only one person in social who intentionally spoiled something for me, and that person will rue the day that he did that. I mean, I've seen so many people try to ruin things for other people, and I just don't understand. I really genuinely don't understand why someone's life is so miserable that they have to cast misery on others. I'm not interested in that. I'm not. It's the reason why I've been very careful about what I've shared on social. I believe the social lift of the blackout on spoilers is going to be right around the first of the year. So another week or so, and then I feel like I'd be able to openly talk about it without tagging something or flagging something as spoilers. A great balance of humor, drama, action. It had it all. I mean, it really did. There wasn't really an element that I felt was missing, lacking, done poorly. It was a good Star Wars film, a good fantasy film. I believe I would categorize, and I'm not the only one, Star Wars in the realm of fantasy more so than I would categorize it in the realm of sci-fi. It's one of the reasons why the whole quote-unquote debate over Star Trek versus Star Wars is just insipid. I mean, number one, I like both. Star Trek's not my fandom, but they're completely different. One's in the future, and it could very well happen. One is in the past, in a completely different galaxy. It's difficult to accommodate, I believe, it's difficult to accommodate every type of audience, but I think they did well with The Force Awakens. In watching it as an adult, and having an experience where it felt like I was a kid again, but knowing full well that kids were going to enjoy it, knowing full well that it wasn't, I don't think they set out with inclusion in mind, but Rey was outstanding as a lead, and I guess to me I didn't, and it may just be my bias, because we're all biased, right? We all, come to things with different experiences. I just saw Rey as an amazing character. Period. That's it. Male, female, doesn't matter. She was an amazing character. I saw Finn as an amazing character. It doesn't matter, who they are. I mean, as actors and what brought them to this point, they did such an amazing job. Poe, Oscar Isaac, everybody, everyone in the new cast, I thought did outstanding. Not to mention the classic cast as well. And this seems to be a topic of conversation online where it's an issue that some of Rey's abilities were a little unbelievable. Well, again, I'm going to come back to that, the approach of this is fantasy. Hello? Boom, boom, boom. McFly, this is fantasy. Fantasy? Well, there we go. It's science-y-ish? Space-ish? Fantasy? Yeah, fantasy. The first time I saw it, it was more pronounced, this feeling of not wanting the movie to end. I felt the same way the second and third time, but it was different. The first time, it was too soon. I'm not kidding. I was expecting another half hour. I really genuinely was. It flew by. And that, to me, is the hallmark of a good film, as I mentioned in my spoilers, or in my reaction video. The second one, the one that I labeled spoilers. And it did way too soon. I absolutely foresee, or would want, a director's cut for this film, I would love an extra hour of footage, because, I would love to see Constable Zuvio. I'm going to joke later in a tweet, episode 8, Zuvio's Revenge, that's the title. I would love to see a bit more Phasma, and I feel that some of her scenes may have wound up on the cutting room floor, personally. I don't know. I'm not privy to any insider information. In fact, Poe, in the original write of a script, or one of the original writes, was going to get killed off. And that basically made Oscar Isaac not feel as great about the role. He was still going to do it. It's Star Wars. But they came back to him and said that he's not going to die. So that was leaked out in memos. I don't think it was an intentional leak. But it was just a story that's come out after the movie was released this weekend, breaking pretty much every single box office record. It is definitely, it's a winner. And I feel like I contributed to 7% of that. because I've seen it a few times. Not to mention the merchandising. So suffice it to say, Disney's making its investment back in this buyout pretty quickly. So I didn't want the movie to end. So this is where, and bear with me here. I'm going to come back to the idea of 7, 8, 9 playing well together, playing better together than each one of the movies would stand alone. Judging this movie on its own is possible. I don't think it's fair, but the way I've described it, in loose terms, not direct terms, it reminded me, or elements of what they're doing with 7 reminded me an awful lot of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And originally, you might remember, I did not like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at all. At all. And I shelved it and didn't think about it until a friend, Michelle Gamboa, had brought it up. No, you need to watch it. You need to watch it. And I did, and now I love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's my favorite part of the MCU. I've mentioned it over and over and over and over again. If you've missed me saying it, maybe you've never seen a video that I've done before. I tend to talk. I love Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because I feel invested. I feel that it's been great development, great characters, great story, great dialogue, great enough effects, especially for something that is episodic. It was, a surprise to me to like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And I believe that if and when Disney decides to do a live-action Star Wars show, and if it happens, I think it's going to be a lot like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Look at what they're doing with the Marvel properties. I think it'd be a lot like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I'm sure you're going to have elements of like what they're doing with Netflix with Jessica Jones and Daredevil. But I think that an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. type of Star Wars show is absolutely going to happen. And this weekend was the test. This was the test. And I'm sure they've been really reserved about their plans, which is fine, but now they know. Now they know. To call us anything less than a breakaway success is just, well, I'll get into it. But, to me, the success of a movie is not contingent on how many people see it. To me, the success of the movie is working well for me. I don't care how many other people like coffee. I like coffee. I don't care how many other people like Star Wars. I like Star Wars. But the episodic feel of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. I think is important. Because that, I think, is the 7, 8, 9. As I said, it's those three things together. It'd be like me judging an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode. I'm like, yeah, it was good, but you can't judge this one without judging the entire series. I can't effectively judge the entire series of Star Wars movies because I really believe that they were done at different times and are a bit disconnected in that fashion, and have completely different styles to boot. But like I said, this is probably one of the reasons why I don't mind the cliffhangers as much, or the the questions that I have with The Force Awakens. Some people, it's driving nuts, but I like that part of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It keeps me going. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the only television show that I, on a regular basis, will watch and have reactions to. Like, physical, like, yelling, screaming at the TV, or laughing. I mean, I have these strong reactions. So I really like it. I really like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Star Wars. And like I said, I'm trying to draw this comparison. And I know they're completely different, but it's that feel. The episodic feel was there. I had mentioned in my reaction video that this is poetry done well. And the reason why I mentioned that is because I felt like throughout the film, the first viewing of the film, that the mirrors to the past were realistic. I thought they were done well. I thought they weren't heavy-handed, though some people disagree. They thought it was too much mirroring to the past, way too much. But I don't, I guess I didn't mind that they were there. I didn't find it to be too much, personally. The mirrors to the past, like, when Phasma is shutting down the shield and Finn's, got her by gunpoint, and Han says, do you have a garbage chute with a trash compactor? It was good. It was that, I was like, oh, yeah. I mean, now you wonder what the hell happened to Phasma, too. But, just bringing up, these scenes that we know and we remember differently. And I think that's what's fascinating, because Han is going to remember that as a character differently than we did as a fan. And even, going back to the beginning of the movie, Rey is sitting on Jakku in, what appears to, and I think I mentioned this in the coming on too, so forgive if I repeat, but she's sitting at base camp. Her camp is an AT-AT, an AT-AT. That means nothing to her. Nothing. She has no emotional connection to that vehicle. The AT-AT, this vehicle, it's just a piece of machinery. But we do. We see it differently than the character sees it, because we're bringing that context from what we've experienced in earlier films, specifically in the original trilogy. But the poetry that I'm speaking to is directly in relation to what George Lucas was saying about the prequels in relation to the original trilogy. So does that make sense? George Lucas says, it's about stanzas and rhyming and poetry and, balance and all this. And I subscribe, and I've mentioned this before, to the Star Wars ring theory. I think it makes a lot of sense. I think it was likely George's vision to make the prequels to mirror the original trilogy. But I think where it falls short, despite the ring theory making sense, and giving me a new hope for respecting or appreciating the prequels at a level that I couldn't before, and still probably don't. It doesn't forgive what I believe boils down to really poor directing, which leads to poor acting, or at least the display of poor acting, and poor editing in the prequels. And I think that could be fixed. And it's not that I'm not hating. I still watch them. I still enjoy the prequels. They're canon. I'm not going to sit here and say I hate the prequels, because I don't. But I just like I'll be critical about this film at certain points. I'm critical for the prequels in a completely different way. This to me feels like poetry done well. The way that it could be described in generic terms would mirror a lot of the experiences that we would have seen played out in A New Hope, and I'm okay with that. I felt I was fine with that. It was realistic. To me, it was absolutely realistic. Even if thematically, even if certain points in the movie, certain things happened. To me, it didn't offend my sensibilities, and it was executed well. The poetry, if that's indeed what they were going for, it was just done well. And I thought balanced well. To boot. To me, then, this is just my first set of bullet points, by the way. I believe, and I got upset yesterday when a few people just, they feel I was banging this drum a little too loudly. And I can understand why they might say something, but it was very concerning to see that they don't see it or didn't see it as a problem. To me, this, once and for all, The Force Awakens, ends the stupidity of Star Wars being only for boys, because that was just stupid to begin with. And believe me, sentiment exists. You'd be surprised. Do you know how much what's the best word to use for it, negativity was cast upon us the moment, and this happens up until it keeps happening, when we announced our daughter's name being Jedi. Some people freaked out. They're like, "Oh, that's horrible. She's gonna get bullied." I'm like, dude, my name was Chris. I was bullied. Maybe instead of victim shaming, you should be more concerned about the people who lack respect for themselves and for others. So, Jedi is not a girl's name. Star Wars is for boys. Trust me, I got it. I still get it to this day. And maybe I'm more sensitive to this topic because I see it. I'm impacted by it all the time. Moreover, a lot of the people that I follow are subjected to this at a deeper level than I am. Women who find themselves loving geekier pursuits or technology or science or anything that video games that is perceived as a boys' club, find themselves at the wrong end of the spectrum, illogically. So I couldn't fight it before, and now it's not even an argument. People looked stupid for saying sentiment like,
You can't have a black stormtrooper. Stormtroopers aren't black. You can't have a female stormtrooper. Female, girls aren't Star Wars. Star Wars is for boys.
And you know what? The industry is just as much to blame. Marketing, just as much to blame. I see Star Wars marketed as boys, even from Disney. It upsets me greatly. And I have a horse in this race. I've got my daughter. Her name's Jedi. I've always believed that Star Wars isn't for boys. It's not for girls. It's for everybody. So anybody who throws that in your face now, tell them to shut up. All you gotta do is say, oh yeah, this what was the box office record? Like 200 and some odd million over the opening weekend? We haven't even begun. You know what? The Force Awakens is gonna make more. You know why? Forget merchandising. The movie, I can almost guarantee, when 8's out, they're going to re-release 7. And I bet you they're even going to start to re-release the original trilogy as well. I'm not sure about the prequels yet. But then when 9's out, they're going to re-release 7 and 8. Trust me, because remember, they're going to come together. It's a set. 7, 8, 9. Trust me. Oh, someone had mentioned at a meetup over the weekend. Do you remember Pete's Dragon, one of my favorite Disney movies of all time? I love that movie. As a kid, certainly. There's a song called Every Little Piece, sung by Doc Terminus, and Hoagie was his name, his sidekick. In Money, Money, Money by the Pound. Oh, it was so apropos. That to me, I was like, this is Disney right now. So the fact that they put Rey as a lead, for the most part, and second only to Finn, and then Han Solo, it worked. I mean, there was nothing that just leapt out at me that this was fun. This was a Star Wars movie. It was great. It was awesome. And it wasn't just for boys. And I love that. And I probably just woke up my girl. I was up late last night, not just playing Battlefront, but Jedi is actually sick. We may have to postpone Christmas, and that is not a joke. She's coughing, she's congested, and kept us up all night. And, of course, I'm very, very concerned. And I'm hopefully not waking her up with my excitement in talking about this. So, some other notes here, and for some reason, I lumped this into a second category. The final scene was made more dramatic by not using dialogue. Though, there were a couple scenes. Okay, so I appreciated the last scene. I'm surprised that's where it ended. It was more like an epilogue than the final scene. But it worked. I was like, oh, it was deeper that way. It was like, oh wow, and you could just see, the look in Luke's face at this. I'm still trying to process it. There are two scenes, and I'm gonna side jump to this. Two scenes that I'm still processing, like in terms of facial expressions and what's going through the characters' minds. What's going through Luke's mind at the end, and what was going through Han's mind when he was killed. Let's face it, by Kylo Ren, not his son. He was not killed by his son. Although he was the physical manifestation of his son, Han was still reaching out specifically for Ben, not Kylo Ren. So there's something that isn't sitting well yet for me with Luke's facial expressions at the end, as well as during Han's death. And I can't quite put my finger on it. I'm still thinking and reading and want to talk about it more. Like what do you think is going through their heads at this time, especially at the end when you don't hear Luke say anything. He doesn't accept the lightsaber. He's there, and just building that suspense and building that drama. But I'm still looking to read their faces, and something just it doesn't not sit well with me. But there's still something that I haven't yet processed, which is one of the reasons I want to see the movie again and again and again. I picked up on a theme, and this may have been after, I think it was after the first or second showing. Running away or hiding seemed to be a theme with a lot of the characters. A lot. From Rey. Rey was stationary for the longest time, but you might remember when she was in Maz Kanata's castle, she ran away. She was like, she couldn't handle everything that was going on, and then she was made even further, felt further alone when Finn took off. And Finn's trying to run away, like pretty much the whole movie, which makes, when that's a part of the character, it makes it that much more dramatic when Finn doesn't run away, he runs too. Or Finn's not a fighter, and I'll mention this in talking about Finn a little more deeply. he doesn't fight. He's been trained, but he's not a fighter, and so that makes the fight scenes with Finn that much more powerful. It's why the character worked. But Han Solo running away, throwing himself back into a quote unquote career of being a smuggler, or running away from the fact that he failed his family. Well, I don't know if they ever got married, but Leia, or his son Ben. The theme of running away or hiding. And of course the Force Awakens, so everything's kind of been hidden away, down to Kylo Ren hiding his face from everybody. That's you wear a mask, and there's a good quote, and I'll get to it in a bit. To hide yourself, you're ashamed of yourself, and it's a good reason for Kylo Ren to be wearing that mask, but also be okay with taking it off when he believes that he's in control. And you'll notice that happens throughout the film. But he's hiding. Snoke hiding. This theme of running away or hiding is there. It's a motif, and I don't quite know why, but it seems that to me it's a thread that ties a lot of these characters together. Hiding or running away. There was a lot of foreshadowing done without too much exposition. And exposition to me offends the audience's sensibilities. I don't want exposition unless something is so esoteric that I need a little more context. When it's exposition for the sake of exposition, there was only one moment that I thought could be done differently to have a deeper impact, specifically at the end with Kylo and Rey's face. And admittedly, Rey is just beginning to see her, understand that she is a Jedi, or she has these powers that she's always known have been in there, as highlighted by Maz Kanata, the Yoda-esque character in this particular film or series of films. I have a feeling we're not seeing the last of Maz. There was nothing that was overt, and except for when Kylo Ren is in her face and he's got the blades and they're fighting, and the blades are spitting, and you see that the color just juxtaposed, this blue or white light juxtaposed against the red as they're face to face, and the reflections in their eyes. It was such a powerful scene. And he says something along the lines of, I'll teach you the ways of the Force. And then she remembers. You got to remember. I mean, she's overwhelmed, but she's just now beginning to understand her power, or just potentially tapping into her power. She says, "For the Force." As he says it, and she mutters it. She says the Force, and then she closes her eyes. I think that I could have done without her saying the Force. I have to watch it a few more times, but I think if she would have, opened her eyes wider and then closed her eyes, we would have understood that she was using the Force. So I think that scene could have been made a bit more powerful by that. I know it's a small concern, but it didn't take away from it too much. It kind of brought me back. I'm like, why'd you have to say that? We know. You don't have to tell us. We know. We get it. And a lot of it could have been emoted with her face. But like I said, it wasn't heavy-handed on the exposition. I didn't feel. I felt I got enough. Minus that one part. A lot of foreshadowing, though. I knew this was going to happen. And you see a lot more of the foreshadowing, actually, on the second and third viewing than you do the first. I'll be honest with you. I saw a lot of it in the third viewing. A lot of the foreshadowing in the third viewing. Because I've had time. I've reviewed. You see, Han knew he was going to die. He knew. I mean, let's face it. Harrison Ford has wanted Han Solo. He's ready to off him in Empire. Like, he's been done with this character for years and years and years. And stars. For years and years and years and years, he's been wanting this character to go away. He was done with it. It's just a character for him. It's like the interview on Jimmy Fallon. He says, Jimmy asks, I think it was Jimmy Fallon, did you get emotional when you put on Han Solo's suit, or his costume? He says, and Harrison Ford says, no, I got paid. And that says it all. I mean, it's a job for him. I'm sure he respects the character, but he did. I'll get to the characters in a second, and the actors in a bit. But to me, the foreshadowing was in Han, and he knew. He knew he was marching into his death. He knew he was going to die. He knew. Just to point out, like, when and where and the processing, when he's speaking with Leia after Leia said, when have you ever tried to help, or something along the lines, and she says, and don't say the Death Star. In that scene, where they're talking about, what had happened, and we're kind of getting filled in, at the end of it, when I think C-3PO or someone calls the General Organa, Leia, over, You can see it in Han's face. He's processing. He's like, what can I do to make this right? And his face, again, let me keep processing. I'll get to Han in a bit. But there's this foreshadowing, even with Han's interactions with Rey, with how Han approached Kylo on the bridge, because he knew. Han knew. He knew that it was a one-way street. He knew. He had to have known. Forget the Harrison Ford tie-in to Han and him not really wanting Han to live. He knew. And I don't think Harrison phoned it in. In fact, I think it was one of the out of all the performances, I think Harrison's performance of Han deserves the most amount of study. More on that in a bit. So much symbolism, absolutely. So the symbolism was it was just thick. As I pointed out, the battle at the end, when Rey didn't have to make a decision at that moment, but you can just see the stark contrast between the dark and the light when they're fighting the lightsaber battle. The white glow of the blue of Luke's lightsaber, now Rey's lightsaber, or originally Anakin's lightsaber, and Kylo Ren's red, this darkness. That it was symbolism. I mean, the fight between dark and light, I thought it was very well done. Just that scene alone was probably, to me, and I know this is going to upset a lot of people, one of the best pieces of lightsaber battles we've ever seen. Ever. Across any media. That was it. Because of the symbolism. It made it so much more meaningful. It was done so well. So it's not about the actual battle. It wasn't. It's never been for me. I mean, I appreciate really good, sword play, but it was just that. I mean, it was such a stark contrast. And it worked. It really worked. Or the symbolism of Han's ultimate redemption, as you'll notice, after he's killed by Kylo Ren, he falls into the light. And, I caught that like second or third. It gives me goosebumps now. He falls into the light. And it was just so beautiful. I can't believe I'm getting choked up again. Just to see him fall into the light, he's had this amazing life that, he's always tried to do the right thing, and you could see him try to do the right thing even towards the end, and to see him falling into the light was just so, it was beautiful. It was so well done. I can't believe I'm getting... I feel silly. But that's what good filmmaking does. It moves you, and like I said, I mean, I need to see it again just to process it, because it's so hard to let go of this person and this character that we've had an idea in our heads of who he is or who he was, and I think part of why I'm having a difficult time processing it is because I don't know if I ever imagined this character leaving us like that. And maybe it means a lot to me in being a father. And the pain I feel, like Jedi's sick, and I just feel for her because I can't help. And I want to help in every way. And I can't. Pardon. Just look at that moment. And he's falling into the light. And that's why his character worked. And, I can't... Maybe I just feel it wasn't a fitting end to Han, but he fell into the light. I mean, he's surrounded by darkness, and even the moments leading up to his death, there's this light that's being cast from the sun that's being bled of its energy. It's being cast onto the bridge. It's showing the light, and there's just this glimmer of hope, and then it just fades. And I think Kylo was already in charge by the time that Han died. He was already, by the time he took off, when Kylo Ren took off his mask, he was in charge. I think he already knew. He'd already flipped. But then the diminishing of the light was, we had this hope. We were holding on to that hope. It was gone. It had already been gone. And I think Han already saw it, but he was going to try. He was going to do it. He was going to try to set things right. Oh God, his character was filled with so much regret. You could just see it. So much pain, so much regret for trying to do the right thing and trying to set things right. So Anyway, that to me is what symbolism does. I mean, that was heavy, heavy, man. So now I'm gonna. I didn't really have another place to put this, but I've listened to the soundtrack a few times, even in experiencing it in the film. There was really nothing in that soundtrack that popped out, minus one song, the band from Maz Kanata's Castle. I want that track. That track was epic. That track was amazing. It was. I loved it. It hit me right away. And Ray's theme stands out, but it's growing on me. But it's not. I don't know. Even Kylo Ren's theme, powerful, but not catchy. Not there seemingly wasn't a hook with the soundtrack, and I'm not the only one who says this either. I've read other people's perspectives. The soundtrack was, I think, one of the weaker parts of the film. It worked. It supported the film, but there was nothing that popped. I'll even say this: one of the better parts of the prequels was the soundtrack. Like it was like the themes were just amazing, absolutely breathtaking. Oh, someone subscribed. Thank you, Helms Deep. Helms Deep. That's awesome. The symbolism, the sun going out, dude. You got to trust me. Just watch the film over and over. You will catch this stuff. The subtleties are there, but they're absolutely powerful once you see them. Anyway, soundtrack. I've got it. You can download it. Well, or if you have a music subscription, you can likely get it on yours. But I've listened to it over and over again. I like Ray's theme. I'm reminded it's very Danny Elfman-esque for some reason. That's the feel I get with Ray's theme. But Finn has a theme, and it's like, oh, really? He does? Okay. It wasn't powerful. I was not largely impressed with the soundtrack, minus the bits and pieces when you'd hear a theme that was familiar. The Star Wars theme, or Han and Leia's theme, or Luke's theme. They oh yeah, I have a reaction to that because it's familiar, and I don't know. I just think that if I had a major criticism on the film, and it's not. I mean, I like music. It's not the thing that drives me to film, but I think it makes a deep impact. I think it was one of the reasons I had a yes moment, or an excited moment, or an emotional response when the music, I think, helps. When Kylo thought he was getting the blade, and it flies into Rey's hands, and Rey's just like, oh my god, it worked. I got emotional all 3 times. Like, I'm like, yeah! Like, and that, again, that's filmmaking, man. That's like, yeah! That's what you do. I was excited. Oh, and I think the music helped because you've got this crescendo and like, boom, So music helps, and I think it supported the film well. But I don't find many outstanding parts of the soundtrack. I have to listen to it over and over again. But like, you listen to Anakin's theme from The Phantom Menace, and it's haunting, and it's beautiful. And I love it. It's still in my head. Or even Padme and Anakin's theme. They were good. They were done very, very well. I don't hear that in this score at all. The only song I want in the soundtrack is from Maz Kanata's Castle, the band. Man, I want to play that over and over until I'm sick of it. It's cool. That was and the cantina scene. I don't even know if I made a mention of this. I loved it. I love aliens, though. I kept looking, going, can't wait to get that figure, that figure, that figure, that figure, that figure. And what the hell happened with Zuvio? Cutting room floor. And the Hask Thug, which was leaked as a figure. I'm like, okay, I guess he was in the cantina. Or Maz Kanata's castle. I want the figures. Can't wait. Cannot wait. Specifically the 3 3/4 inch, 3.75 inch variety. 6-inch figures, we'll see. But specifically the shorter figures. Those are the classics for me. I always, especially 5 POA, I'll always have a place in my heart for them. So that was the soundtrack. I did mention here at this point, I guess, and I mentioned it earlier, it is worth seeing in 3D. Haven't seen it in 2D yet, but absolutely will. One disappointment I had, and this is really out of place, my theater, and I'm saying this because maybe you have something, you know of something. I may be going to eBay to get memorabilia because my theater had nothing. They didn't even have, no signage, no nothing. No popcorn buckets, no drink thing. So, if your theater has Star Wars The Force Awakens memorabilia, let me know. Because, otherwise I gotta go on eBay and pay like $1 bazillion for something not worth $2. I'm interested. I'd be interested in picking up some Force Awakens memorabilia. Even down to the 3D glasses that I got. They weren't the special ones. They're just plain old black glasses. I'm like, Wow. So I've got to get on eBay to get glasses because I'd like some bit of memorabilia apart from the memories that I had. Because I didn't get any at my theaters. So when I talked about emotional reactions and reactions, I have a block or a chunk here in terms of how I reacted or when. When the Falcon was first seen, I was actually standing off to the side. As I was saying, I was kind of emotionally overwhelmed. Nothing in this world has ever moved me like that. I've never looked at technology and cried. It just does. It will never happen. But when the Falcon came on, I'm like, yeah. In fact, and I mentioned this in the character block here, and I'll bring it up. The Falcon was treated as a character. But yeah, the Falcon, woo! Like, no, it's a piece of garbage. Okay, the piece of garbage will do after the quad jumper got blown up. It was just a perfect introduction. It was perfect introduction to the Falcon, and I just clapped. It's like, yeah, it's the right thing. It didn't feel like it was introduced well. And in fact, I'm going to jump forward here because I read an article talking about why R2-D2 was silent for so long and then woke up. They wanted to give every character their moment. And R2-D2 needed his moment. And his moment was timed well enough that it happened at the end. Where because, again, remember, the whole movie was, we've got to find Luke Skywalker. That was it. Or protect this map so that they don't find Luke Skywalker first. So, that he's what they call the MacGuffin. Luke Skywalker, this guy was the MacGuffin. So, R2-D2 woke up. Apparently, he's an older astromech. When BB-8 first tapped him, and C-3PO says no, he's in low power mode, that started things in R2-D2. This is what was told. This is what was shared. So R2-D2's moment was at the end where, we've lost hope. Han's gone. Chewie's very, very, very sad, borderline despondent. And then it just shifts to R2-D2. So he gets his moment. That was R2-D2's moment. So the Falcon got its own moment. When Rey flew the Falcon, there was nothing in the movie that I felt was cringeworthy in a negative way, but I cringed. And it was like when she was flying the Falcon, it was just like skidding and but eventually, I will tell you this, even despite the dragon, all that was the best flight of the Falcon out of all the movies. But let's face it, I think it was really only the original trilogy. Did you know that Han was never at the controls of the Millennium Falcon in Return of the Jedi? Think about that. That's one thing this movie had that Return of the Jedi did not. Han at the controls of the Falcon. Skidding around. But the flight, Rey controlled that, man. When she basically paused the Falcon midair after realizing Finn's gun was jammed, and it just Finn realizes, oh, it's straight ahead. And then shifts it forward and goes. Man, that was the flight of the Falcon right there, man. That was the flight of the Falcon. Han was good, but man, that was beautiful. But I was like, ooh, because it's kind of like you're seeing this beautiful thing get scraped and like, no, don't, no, ooh, because you know this thing, you know it well, and it's not just a piece of machine. It's it's a character. So I was gasping. I'm like, ooh. And I think I wasn't the only one. I mentioned this. I got choked up when Rey force pulled the lightsaber away from Kylo Ren because I didn't see it coming. I was like, Kylo's gonna get it, and it was just this moment of like, yes, you know who you are now, like, or you're finding your way. This to me was the beginning. Even though she was kind of playing around with the Jedi mind trick. Before, or she's kind of testing the feeling around the power of the Jedi when Kylo basically, I think honestly, as much as Maz may have kind of kicked it along or holding onto the lightsaber and seeing scenes of the Bespin corridor all the way through and hearing voices from the past, Obi-Wan, Yoda, that may have kind of started shifting things with Rey, but it also scared the crap out of her. This is the moment, this end where she's waking up to it. She is now awakened. So I felt emotional. I kind of got choked up there. The next time I got choked up, the second viewing, I got more choked up with Han's death. Specifically when he yelled out Ben. I thought that was a very powerful moment. Very, very powerful. Humanizing Kylo Ren, if you will. Or trying to, provide some context. I had a feeling it was Kylo Ren's real name was either going to be Ben or Anakin, or it was something that would make sense. Something in that Ben made sense. Forget EU, forget the legacy stuff. I'm sure it was, Ben was used in kids' names as these characters grew older in Legacy, but it just made more sense. I felt for Chewie the first time I saw it. I felt for Chewie after Han's death. I got choked up because it's always been Han and Chewie, always Han and Chewie, Han and Chewie, Han and Chewie, and Chewie's now this co-pilot without a pilot. And Chewie could pilot, but he's always he's with Han, and so even at the end, then knowing that, you can see this transition of moving from Han and Chewie to potentially Rey and Chewie. Chewie sat in the co-pilot seat and let Rey at the controls, and that to me was kind of like, Chewie at the end when he kind of like tilts his head, he's like, "I'm your co-pilot," it's what he's saying, and it's overwhelming. But I also have a bone to pick, by the way, with Hasbro. The Millennium Falcon toy, it comes with Finn. I get why it comes with BB-8 and Finn. Yeah, Finn was in the Falcon and Chewie. So it's not that I'm concerned that it doesn't come with Han, but why doesn't it come with Rey? The only thing I can think of is spoilers. But to me, it's much more fitting to have Rey and Chewie. It'd be like, I don't know. It's like that to me, it's Rey and Chewie now, not Finn and Chewie. That's what didn't make sense. And so to me, Hasbro did that to avoid spoilers. I think it's a mistake that needs to be corrected. Personally, I have a big problem with it. I do have a big problem with it. My heartstrings were tugged when R2-D2 came back. So I was like, oh yeah, oh R2-D2. I knew he'd still be there, just didn't know when. And that was it. That was that. The echoes of the past, and this is where some people get upset about the film. These are people that you're never going to please, though. The echoes of the past made me feel like I had finally come home. Like, Han and Chewie come in, hey, Chewie, we're home. This was, being able to hear these things and see these things, even at very brief moments, glimpses of the past, made me feel like I was at home. Made me feel like I was there. It made me feel attached to the characters and the story and everything more deeply, I should say, than anything in the prequels. Anything in the prequels. That I had nothing. I mean, I'm like, oh, it's Obi-Wan. Okay. I'm like, but this was different. I felt like I was invested in Episode 7, whereas I don't think I was ever invested in anything that was happening in the prequels, despite knowing the characters, despite knowing the arc, or certainly knowing or understanding who Anakin was and what he was going to become. It wasn't the question of that happening; it's when and how that got answered in the films. I thought the dog fights, even though I enjoyed those types of movies. The Top Gun-esque scenes. Although this puts Top Gun to shame, I thought the dog fights and the fights were done well. The battles were done well. Chewie's bowcaster really takes center stage, man, which was cool. I mean, really, it was neat. I'm not really someone who's into war films or anything like that, or battle scenes necessarily. But I thought they were done well. The dog fights, certainly. I don't think that they were done to take away from the film. I thought they were, like I said, it's difficult to accommodate everybody's wants in the film, and I thought there was enough. I thought there was enough done. The lightsaber battles were choreographed well and needed to be sloppy. So I was talking to Slav the other day. He says he didn't like the lightsaber battles. I'm like, well, because you're not talking about trained Jedi necessarily. You're talking about Kylo Ren, who's just full of anger, and I'd use the word petulant to describe Kylo Ren, prone to outbursts, not being able to control, what's welling up inside and just wanting to lash out and everything, and just being mean, just a bad guy, literally a bad guy. So the lightsaber battles that happen were supposed to be sloppy. Finn he fights, and he was trained. Just because he's in sanitation which makes sense. He's not a warrior. And if you think about it, that would be just about the only type of role Finn would be able to take that would lead him potentially into battle. That would put making Finn's first battle something that they thought was going to be routine. This raid on a very small village with unarmed, and so it's going to be easy. That just they're going to wipe him out. Not a big deal. Finn was expendable, as are most of the soldiers, but he was trained. People in the army that do sanitation are trained too. So it's like it makes sense. So Finn's he's not going to have a style, right? He's there to fight and everything. Or even Rey, this was something that was clearly established at the beginning of the film. She can take care of herself, which makes sense. How is she going to survive Jakku without being able to defend herself from a child, to a young adult? She's got her staff. It's with her everywhere, right? Boom, boom, boom. She knows how to use a staff. So the fact that she wields the lightsaber as well as she does is impressive. But she's not wielding it like, doing all these amazing things. She's doing them well enough. But I thought that it was choreographed appropriately. Sorry, I just heard something out there. The final destruction of the Republic was not a minor event. Although, much like other people, I thought they had destroyed Coruscant. But the planet name was never revealed, and I guess it wasn't relevant enough for the film, but as it was described in the Hosnian system, Hosnian Prime was destroyed. So apparently, and this is something that surfaced, something I've got on order, the visual dictionary for The Force Awakens is probably crucial reading material. Very simple, very visual, obviously, visual dictionary, but it explains that the Senate seat moves every so often. It's not just on Coruscant. So Hux's anger for the Republic, I believe, is justified. Think about everything that had gone on for years being tied back into the government. Whether we're talking about the prequels, whether we're talking about the trilogy, the Republic was at the heart of funding the campaign to take down what could very well be an empire, to me, it was even deeper than that. It was Hux's anger, was I'm going to go a little, pardon me, I'm going to go a little deep here. His anger was almost like the fans' anger. Like, the reaction to the prequels were like, what's all this government talk? Trade disputes? And fans got angry. That, to me, was Hux. And so Hux, they're done with the government. They're saying, you know what? Screw the Republic. We're done with them. No, done. That's it. Done. Here we go. Fire. Boom. Done. No more government. No more Republic. That's big. That is huge. So you don't have the shackles of a legacy system. They're gone. I just thought it was Coruscant. It is not. It's Hosnian Prime. Don't know if it would have mattered either way, because to me the deeper meaning or significance of that was, number one, fans. I think that was the anger of fans towards the fact that it was all about the Senate and the government and the prequels, which some people really didn't like. It's gone, and that to me was, so Hux's anger was you if you didn't like the prequels, if you hated the prequels. That was Hux's anger. Now, someone even went as far as to say in discussions over the weekend that the very first line of the film, like, this will begin to set things right, could have been very well Disney saying, yeah, them prequels, we know they're there, but this is the way we're moving forward, so let's move forward. The very first line of the film. So maybe I'm reaching with both of those points in terms of thinking them through, but I think they're interesting ideas to throw out there nonetheless. So the destruction of the Republic was absolutely huge, gigantic, ginormous. Let's see here. I loved how lighthearted the touch points were done, memories, objects, etc. I mentioned that earlier, but just these passing, things that are there, like the chess game that Finn turns on accidentally in the Falcon, or as Finn's digging through a bag, picks up the remote that Luke fought when he was first, or like training with Ben, very, very, very briefly. But I thought they were very lighthearted. Echoes of A New Hope are exactly what this film should have been. That's my feeling. Because again, I don't think Disney could have done it any other way. Because they would have complained. People would have complained, or it may not have been as much of a success. Don't screw with a good thing. And moreover, people who don't learn from their mistakes are doomed to repeat them. This is reality, dude. As much as this is fantasy, everything felt realistic. It was like, this could happen. We find ourselves in the same pattern. History repeats itself. It absolutely does. This isn't new. I am interested in knowing how the Jedi became a myth so quickly. And obviously they became a myth. Okay, so apparently I've been speaking for a half hour, an hour. Wow, this has been a longer view. I'm sorry the chat went away. I should have turned behind me. I can't turn around and turn it on right now though. So, pardon. I'm going to keep moving forward. I am interested in how the Jedi became a myth so quickly. I am interested in the short stories and books more now. I do want to read the Phantom Menace. I did read the Phantom Menace. That was the last big Star Wars book I think I read. I do want to read the Force Awakens book. There are a few short stories that I want to read as well that fill in the backstory on certain characters, including Issaquah Plank. He's in one of them. Okay, so now on to the character. Should I actually kick open chat again? All right, hang on just a second. I have to get this working here. Give me a... Oh, crap. Oh, I shouldn't have done that. Sorry, I have to, like, process this very carefully. And if I screw it up, I apologize. You have to pardon, but you know what? It's been an hour, so take a break. Walk around. There you go. Okay, chat's back. Chat is back, and I keep getting notifications. I will address everybody's questions here at the end of the video. I knew this was going to be long. I told you. I warned you ahead of time this was going to be long. So now I've got, like... I thought my talking points were long before. I've got... This is my character block. So BB-8 could have easily stolen the show. You know, if BB-8 wasn't an awesome droid before, man... The personality they infused in BB-8 is epic. In fact, as I was listening to BB-8, I think I know how to make BB-8 sounds. I remember doing this video years ago. It's an iPad app that's now a universal app called Bbot. So download Bbot. I may not have the right, I guess, scale or whatever, but Bbot, I was reminded. So if you want to make BB-8 sounds, get Bbot. BB-8, Bbot, I don't know. BB could be Beastie Boys, since I guess J.J. Abrams has a soft spot for the Beastie Boys. I didn't know. I don't care. Beastie Boys weren't my thing. But he could have easily stolen the show. I mean, the emotion that the droid showed was very, very deep. More than I've ever seen in R2-D2, even with, you know, because R2-D2 he had his head turns and the sounds and the lights, but BB-8 had far more articulation, so to speak. I mean, you could obviously move his head around 360 and everything, and it can go up and down and all that. You know, I think the personality was just, it showed through. And to me, the best scene for BB-8 was when Finn was trying to convince him, like, you have to share the base. You know, I will get you there first. You know, I'm trying to get away from the First Order, but I got to get you to the base. I'll get you there first. You know, that scene, and then Rey was asking, yeah, you got to tell us the base, Finn. And Finn's looking at BB-8, and BB-8 is doing the you know, like, you could just see the process. The audience was just laughing, and then of course, you know, BB-8 tells the location of the base, and you know, Finn, droid, please. And then, man, I still laugh. This, you know, Finn, and then, psh, you know, the BB-8. Psh, like, man, it was just so well done, man. Oh, it was perfect. And Finn's grabbing the wrong things, right? No, not that. No. Where I'm pointing, and that's me and going through a tool set. You know, BB-8, you know, puts his head down, points directly at this thing that Finn needed to get to Rey. BB-8 was so well done, man. I love that droid. Yeah, there's not enough good things I can say about BB-8 apart from he's not going away, or she is not going away anytime soon. Han is the character that I believe has changed most, matured or grown up. More so, I mean, we haven't seen anything of Luke yet, and I think honestly, I'm going to say this. I think it was wise for them to place Luke where they did. Very wise. And I know a lot of fans of the trilogy are not going to like that. But here's the thing. How are they going to do this? How are they going to pull this off? Because the moment Luke is there, all the energy gets sucked out of the room. I mean, Han was there as the character, the original trilogy, to, you know, kind of bring us along. But he had changed so much. More so than Leia. I mean, apart from physical differences, but just the character had changed so much. You are seeing a much more matured Han. Han was more like the Obi-Wan of this movie. And you might, again, stark contrast to A New Hope, when, you know, Han's like, you know, what was it? Hokey, something, ancient religions and hokey, sorry, the line's not coming to me. He'd changed, he'd shifted. And now he recognizes it's all true. Like, that to me, even in the teasers, I'm like, dude, that is deep. Because it's Han Solo who's saying it. He's changed so much, and now in everything that he does, look at how much regret is in his face. Look at how much, I'm not going to say he's in touch with his feelings, but he's displaying his affection to Leia and to his son. I mean, he's different, he's aged, and this is exactly where the character needs to go. And you know what? Anybody who says it wasn't the same, well, dude, if you're the same person 30 years from now than you are today, there's something wrong with you. I'm not joking. There's something, I would say that about a year from now. If you're the same person, there's something seriously wrong with you. Like, get checked out. People change, you evolve, circumstances change you, and it happens. And I thought it did so much service to the character, again making the redemption at the end that much more powerful. I believe that Han's character and Harrison's portrayal deserves way more thought than some are giving him. He radically evolved intelligently without insulting my intelligence and how the character was portrayed. But as I said, filled with regret, sorrow, and still seeking redemption, and he got it. He got what he was looking for. Leia seems to have a glimmer of innocence regarding Kylo. As she said in the last embrace with Han, bring him home. If you see our son, bring him home. But that's Han's plan all along, was that he was going to confront the son, but Han knew he wasn't coming home. But why Leia's innocence, right? I mean, she's this war-hardened general now. Is very difficult, and it could be because of the physical changes with Carrie Fisher over time. It was very difficult to catch a lot of Carrie Fisher's emotion, which was a bit frustrating for me. It's like I kept, trying to read. It was sometimes very, very difficult. You had to look at her mouth and to catch a lot, of what she was emoting. Or at least I did. Leia's character needed to be what it was. I don't know if it could have been. I don't think it could have been played any more than it was. Because again, if you let your classic characters dominate the new characters don't have a chance to shine, and all the energy gets sucked out of the room because it goes to the characters that we know, like Han Solo, right? We only needed one strong character from the classic trilogy to carry us through, and Han Solo was it. It's nice to see Leia's still doing her thing, and that's what she does well, being a general, or helping fight with the resistance. But that glimmer of innocence regarding Kylo, I thought was telling of Carrie's, or I'm sorry, her portrayal, or at least Leia's wishes for her son. Also, something that confused me, and this is a question that may get raised at the end: why at the end? Because she's never met Rey until the end. Why? I have this question. Why the pause in looking at Rey as the girl? Why the pause, and then, of course, the loving embrace at the end? I don't understand, because Rey didn't know Leia, had no context for Leia that I know of, or and vice versa. I don't know why that embrace worked. I don't know. Because either Leia knows more than she's letting on, which is likely the case, or something else happened and I missed it. But even some people were concerned that Chewie walked right past Leia at the end, and I thought, well, there had to have been a reason, because Leia was trained in, her eyes were focused on Rey, so it was Rey and Leia moment. I don't know why. I still don't have context for it yet, and it could be because all this fighting and the motherly instinct, or I don't know what it is. But Chewie walked right by Leia, and this bothered some people, and I guess it's kind of concerning, because I thought, well, he just lost Han, right, and he's very, very upset. But he's actually that I know of. I could see him standing. Maybe he kept walking, but I thought I saw him standing in the party, everyone's celebrating. But did he keep walking? Did you see him in the? I don't have the digital copy. Obviously, I can't pause the movie. But I thought he walked past Leia and just went on his own. That would be my feeling, and that would be the right way to do it. I don't know if it really works if Chewie's standing around with the celebration, because maybe he's still, if he is, then maybe he's still processing his feelings and his emotions after Han's death. He's this co-pilot without a pilot. But I thought Chewie's scene would come. His scene would come. At the right after the scene of the embrace. Finn humanized, and believe me, I could talk about this for hours and hours and hours. I mean, beyond the hours that I've been talking. Finn humanized stormtroopers instantaneously, and I loved that opening scene. It was so telling. I mean, you could just. Because to this point, clone troopers, to a certain degree, the Clone Wars, I think, went a long way to humanizing clones. The cartoon series. I'm not sure if the movies did much humanization at all. But Finn was humanized the stormtroopers immediately, from the death where the person reaches up and then swipes down and makes these marks on Finn's helmet. So that was very done well, but so you could also kind of tell Finn apart from the other stormtroopers. And it made sense. I'm like, okay, but it also woke Finn up, and that to me, it was a great scene. It just humanized stormtroopers, because up until that point, they were nameless and faceless. Well, now they have names and faces, and I thought I thought it was amazingly done, and it was a brilliant opening scene. Very well, and you could tell he just felt out of place. He knew he was out of place. First battle, not a fighter. Which, again, made his fight scenes that much more impactful. He's not a fighter. I I don't know. Some people have posited that he's a force wielder, or he controls the force, or he's a Jedi. I don't know if I'm going to go that far. He's not a fighter. If he's force sensitive, um, it could be that the force has the ability to kind of put things in motion. But I don't want to call him a pawn, but I think the force may have moved him to do the things that he did, but I don't know if he's force sensitive. Like Kylo Ren stops and looks at Finn. I don't think it's because of the force. Because if Kylo picked up on the force, he probably would have done something about it. But Kylo could see, he's very observant. That stormtrooper's not moving. Why? But didn't think anything of it. I'm like, okay, well, no big deal, and move on. He could have been picking up on Finn's emotions. He could have been picking up on. Because remember, Kylo's got the Force, so he can read minds and he pick up on emotions. He gets the Force, but I don't think Finn has the Force in him. Or at least I don't think he's Force sensitive, or I don't think he's a Jedi. I do not. But like I said, I think the Force made things happen, and I think Finn helped set the wheels in motion. So he impacted everything and spurred everything on, or helped, certainly, through the various events. But Finn was absolutely a pivotal character. I really like Finn. I joked last night. I said I feel like Finn when I'm playing in Star Wars Battlefront, because I'm like play with controls. I'm like this, that, and I get lucky, or whatever. I feel like Finn. I'm not a fighter either, though. Rey, she must have always felt something inside, and could easily exceed Luke's abilities. I'm going to say it. Rey could exceed Luke's abilities. And I think they're setting the stage for that. And Kylo established that when he was talking to Snoke, saying, she's untrained but powerful. When Rey, and honestly, Maz may have talked about it, but when Kylo was in Rey's head, that's really the first time you see Rey do something. She's fighting back, and then she finds something in her, right? That could have been a seed planted by Maz, or maybe she just found it in her, and it was just intuitive, right? The Jedi mind trick for Rey. Some people thought, well, how could she know the Jedi? Dude, she lived on Jakku. She's seen so many people and characters come through over the years. She can defend herself. She's likely heard of the Jedi mind trick, potentially. Even though the Jedi are a myth. So I don't know how she intuited. I don't yet have an explanation as how she intuited the Jedi mind trick, if she knew that Jedi were a myth. But maybe then after she knew that they weren't a myth, then she's like, well, I've heard of the Jedi mind trick before, in conversations. Maybe I'll try that. Maybe it's worth it. And then she let go, and the character that Daniel Craig was voicing, was ultimately controlled, and there was a good scene. I didn't feel it was out of place. I didn't feel anything about Rey was out of place. I felt that she was awakening appropriately. I didn't feel that she was, as she's being called a Mary Sue. I guess I don't have strong feelings about that. I feel like it was a good character. It was well written. It was well acted. It was very well done. Rey is a great character. Rey is an amazing part of the Star Wars legacy. I care more about Rey than I might any other character out there, because it's everything she did was, to me, believable. It's a realm of fantasy. How, I don't know yet, right? And maybe we're not meant to know. But I believe that the Rey story is obviously not going away anytime soon. She's going to be the Luke, quote unquote, the Luke Skywalker of the next two films. So if you pardon, because I don't know yet, and I want to say that Rey is Kylo's sister, or Han and Leia's daughter. That's my feeling. My feeling is that. But I think I could also see Rey as Luke's daughter. Kylo, by the way, like an amalgamation of Skywalker and Solo. So Princess Leia, or General Leia Organa, Kylo Skywalker, because Han Solo is the father, and General Leia is the mother. Anyway, Rey, I wanted to put that out there too. Rey has a backstory that we just don't know. Was she trained before? Were parts of her memory wiped out, and then suddenly started to awaken because of all these things that have been put into motion? All of these things. It's a great question, and like I said, I think that Rey is going to be a different character in the next film, because right now she's kind of, when she was fighting Kylo Ren originally, she was just kind of crying and firing the weapon because she's overwhelmed. I don't want this. This is not what I didn't want this. Remember, she was running away and she's being forced to confront this. I think you're going to see someone who's far less scared and far more confident in her abilities, or growing into that confidence in the next film. Luke has trained other Jedi. Who? Where? We got the Knights of Ren, but to me, this is deserving of I think it's probably going to be a comic arc. I can't imagine it being a book. I think it's going to be a comic. I don't think it's going to be a television series, the Knights of Ren, or the backstories being filled in. I don't think it's going to be a cartoon series. I think it's going to be a comic series of the origins of the Knights of Ren. I think we're going to get filled in that way. If you're not keeping up on the comics, you should. They're easy, they're fun, they're visual, and they're really going to give you a bit more context. Including with Poe, you've got a little bit of context with the Shattered Empire arc. 4 issues. You meet Poe's parents. You get a little bit of insight. In fact, in Shattered Empire 4, I believe is foreshadowing for where Luke is and what Luke has in either something in episode 7 or 8 or 9. I think there's a tie-in with Shattered Empire beyond the obvious reference of Poe's lineage, of why he's such an amazing pilot. But yeah, who are the other Jedi that Luke trained? How many? Was Rey trained and then her memory wiped when she was dropped off on Jakku? We don't know. We don't know. And so it's great to talk about. It's great to think about. Kylo is twisted, angry, unrelenting, petulant. Pete Morrison is the person who said that Kylo wears the mask not to intimidate others, but to hide his face so others can't see his internal struggle. And I think that's fair. And that was surfaced a lot by Rey saying, you're afraid, or you have a fear. Hello, the dark side. The path to the dark side is this fear that you'll never be as good as Darth Vader, and that really sets him off. Like, Kylo's trigger is his family. But 3 big things that happen with Kylo anytime family is mentioned. Well, 3 or 4. First time was at the beginning when I don't know his name, Max von Sydow's character. He says, "I know where you come from. I know your family," or something along the lines. And then Kylo just like, "Oh yeah," he's dead. Family, trigger word. Next trigger word, when the officer is telling Kylo Ren about the droid escaped, and he says the droid flew a ship. He had help with FN 228 or 2187. The number is eluding me. I think it's FN 2187. Whatever Leia's cell block number was in A New Hope, that's the number. That's Finn's number. And then and he lashes out. Anything else? Oh man! And then he says he had help from a girl, and that was it. He knew, like Finn knew, and that was it was enough to set him off. Or even his anger towards his father, the family. He's got deep family issues, man. Kylo's trigger is his family, big time. And so it all ties together, man. He loves his grandfather, or adores, or idolizes his grandfather to the point where it's destroying him. 3PO's appearance was perfect. I couldn't have thought of a better way of introducing him. I mean, it was just like, we're all going, oh my god, it's just 3PO. You may not recognize me because I have a red arm. It was just funny just to see their facial expressions, like Han, like, come on, dude. But they get it. They had this adoration for 3PO, right? Like, okay, I've known this droid. I get the backstory. But it was perfect. 3PO was, grounded. He was more like the original trilogy 3PO, not the, my God, what the hell were they thinking 3PO of the prequels. Hux is definitely taking care of business. Defines the First Order's arrogance, which I think is important to point out, because the First Order is doing things better than the Empire did, or trying to. Some people say, well, why do another sphere, this like a Death Star, this Star Killer base? Well, to me, those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Okay, they're bad guys, right? They're stupid. Well, what if there is a Sith legend, or some kind of legend where a sphere is a part of a legend or a prophecy? We don't know. I mean, think about it. 2 Death Star spheres. Planet, sphere. Why? Could it be that it was much more affordable to transform a planet than it is to do something with a starship, to give you enough power to do something else? I don't know. Science. I don't know. But I think Hux's anger is the First Order's arrogance. Absolutely. And he takes care of business. He's like, I'm going to get things done. And he's got a bone to pick. There's a backstory with Hux. And I think, again, Hux is going to have a comic arc to kind of fill in the blanks. Like, why is he so angry? Why? We don't know. Snoke was menacing. Obviously has a backstory, wants secrecy. Now, it's been posited, and I believe there's merit to this. Forget Legacy, forget EU, non-canon. I think Snoke could very well be Darth Plagueis. I think he could be Plagueis. If you listen to the theme that played at Episode 3 with the description of Darth Plagueis from Palpatine to Anakin, the theme that played when they were speaking of the story of Darth Plagueis, very similar to Snoke's theme. Very similar to the music. Very similar. Not the same. So you couldn't draw an exact correlation, but very, very eerily. I mean, they're evil and they're bad, and something bad's going on. And I believe that Snoke is a Sith Lord. I believe he's been around for quite some time, and potentially could turn out to be Darth Plagueis, tying in the prequels to this new trilogy, potentially. Because remember, we don't know much about Plagueis apart from what Palpatine described. Let's face it. And it was very, very generic. And Snoke has, or Plagueis has the ability to cheat death. We know that. Where you get tripped up is when someone tries to throw a Legacy in your face, but he's immune. No, in Legacy, he's immune. Of the immune, the race. Nothing saying that he is. Now, it's Legacy, dude. All bets are off. So, Snoke, I mean, some other people were kind of underwhelmed by how Snoke looked, but it grew on me. I'm like, okay, the character looks old. He looks old and evil. So I thought it worked. Initially, Han's death scene, when he actually died, didn't impact me. And it could be that I was still processing things, and it's still taking me a while to process it, but obviously it impacts me now. You've seen my reaction. I thought it was more powerful and impactful when he yelled out Ben than the actual death, up until the part where I recognized the symbolism. Han's ultimate redemption for a selfless act, either way it went for Kylo or Ben. The interesting conversation, look at the last conversation between Kylo Ren and Han. You've got these two people, and Han still wants to believe there's light in Ben, but he believes Han believes the light is gone. Han believes there's no turning, like Kylo's gone, but he's doing it for Leia. Leia says there's light in him. She can still see it. So Han's doing this last act and trying to outreach and help his son in any way. So the question is Han helping Kylo knowing that Kylo is going to kill Han, or is Han helping Kylo out of innocence? Han puts his guard down just for a moment. This character doesn't put his guard down. Never, ever. He's very, very, he's savvy, dude. He's savvy. I mean, down to the, him telling Finn, like, women will, discover everything. Always. Like, he's savvy. So why did Han let his guard down and showed that more sensitive side to Han in wanting to see his son? But did Han really believe that Kylo was that he could still turn around? And then of course Kylo's line after his mask is off, he said, "I need your." God, the line was so good. I know I'm slaughtering the lines, but I need to do. I know I need to do something, but I don't know if I can do it. Can you help me? At that point, I'm like, no, dude, because that could go either way. Help me turn to the light side, or help me turn to the dark side. I don't think it was going to help me turn to the light side. But Han, again, was he thinking, yes, I will help you turn to the light side. Yes, I will help you, complete what you need. Was this Han saying, I will do what I need to make you happy, even if I know it means my death? I think Han's, his face, at the moment of his death was, shock and horror and pain and all these things. Like, I did what I needed to do for my son, and I think that was indicative. Very, very, touch is very, very powerful. In terms of emotion and impact. I mean, in terms of human development, like if a baby does not receive touch, it can actually impact their lives, like mentally, like psychologically speaking. So that last touch of just like swiping away at Kylo's face, he's reaching out for just this glimmer of Ben, to see Ben in this final moment, his son, and it didn't happen, and ultimately, Han as a father made the ultimate sacrifice. And fell into redemption, which I don't want to think about it again, because I'll get choked up. After Kylo says thank you, the Han's touch on the face, it didn't initially, it didn't process, because I'm like, you twisted. I mean, if you hated the character before, you hate him now for what he did. It was just so twisted, so twisted. Yeah, so Han doesn't very rarely would expose himself to that kind of intimacy, but the touch I thought was very powerful. How Han would show his sensitive side. He did the same with Leia. He pulled Leia into the final embrace. He touched Kylo Ren's face in trying to find Ben. Again, I want to think about Han was just you watch the film again and just look at Han, man. Look at Harrison's portrayal. It was spot on. He nailed it. Rey I thought was done well. Finn was done well, but Harrison just nailed it. Phasma wasn't in it enough, but this wasn't an army film. Let's face it. So I don't know if she needed to be in it anymore. In terms of how this film progressed, I would have liked to see more Phasma. I believe that she had some cutscenes. They got cut for whatever reason, but I'd like to see a director's cut. I really would. If this film was a half hour to an hour longer, I would not be complaining at all, in any way, shape, or form. And I think Phasma got cut. And I think she's coming back. I think they've confirmed that there's going to be something that's going to happen between Finn and Phasma. That ain't done yet. That ain't done. You're giving Phasma a reason to come back. I'm going to get Finn, or whatever that is. I mean, now Phasma's got a reason to come back. Various aliens and creatures looked cool. I can't wait for the figures. I'm not intentionally skipping over everything, and I'm not done yet. I have more notes. I told you, man. I'm so glad I waited on this review, because I'll probably keep talking about it, but I needed to do just one video, which is very, very long. Don't want to repeat the fact that I thought that the Falcon was treated like a character with its best flight ever. Mention that. I just made this note. The Force Awakens raises more questions than it answers. It really genuinely does. It is an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. episode. Through and through. If you do not like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I can see why you wouldn't like The Force Awakens. But if you like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and you didn't like The Force Awakens, it would surprise me. But if you like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., I think seeing, The Force Awakens is going to get better and better. Just take it in context. Like, it's just all these questions. What's the cliffhanger, the characters, and it had that very the overarching approach to how they're telling the story is very Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. More questions than answers. Is there a budding romance between Finn and Rey? I think so. I see it in Rey's eyes when Finn tells her that he's a stormtrooper, and he wanted to tell Rey even before the poison gas leaked out on the Falcon, but of course then the poison gas leaked out and they had to fix it. So he tried, but I think that's Finn, being vulnerable, and Rey seeing that there's something, and of course at the end, the gesture that Rey kisses Finn on the forehead, because Rey is, never really had she may have had companions in the past, but Finn and her bonded like immediately with the flight of the Falcon. I mean, it was a big moment, that bonding moment that brought them together. But I think there's a budding romance. I really do. I see it between Finn and Rey. Some people say, oh, it's between Poe and Finn. That's a possibility, but I don't know if I see Poe's characters getting that much more fleshed out or developed. I don't. Personally, I don't. I made a note here. Rey is Kylo's sister. It's a possibility. What's the backstory on Finn, Rey, Kylo? I want to know backstories on a lot of these people, and I think they're going to come out in the comics. I'm going to say it. Books, I just think comics are more approachable from a variety of audiences. I think they're much. You can get your hands on them. You can see things more than books. Books are an investment to me, and books can tell a story, but not like a comic book. I need something more visual. So I'd like to see backstories on all these characters in comics. If we're not going to see them in film, if we're not going to see them in TV. Who are the rest of the Knights of... where are the rest of the Knights of Ren? Who are the rest of the Knights of Ren? I'd like to see them. Cool, bad guys. I'd like to see them. Why is it just now that the First Order is looking for the Skywalker map? What happened? Something set the wheels in motion. But they knew... they had intelligence that led them to the camp on Jakku, where they got it, where they knew they were going to get it. But something... they were closer because they had parts of it... they had pulled the information out of the wreckage of the Empire to better complete the map, but had the missing piece. But my question is why is it just now? There had to be a reason. I accept it. I'm like, okay, now is it. Now's the time. It could have been the Force moved things along. It could have been something else. Is Snoke, a.k.a. Plagueis, was music the clue? I kind of answered that or addressed that question earlier. Did Han? A big question. Did Han know he was going to die? Did Kylo lure Han out to the bridge for leverage? That's a good question because Kylo's very force sensitive. He could probably go right to Han, but why did he go out to the bridge? Why? Why didn't he go to Han? Why did Han go to Kylo? There's something there. There's something to think about. There's something to process. Kylo could have gone directly to Han, but Kylo would have certainly had more leverage and the upper hand on the bridge, rather than giving Han an out. And it could also be a drawback to, remember when Vader revealed to Luke, it was basically on an outshoot in Bespin. Remember, it wasn't exactly a bridge, but I am your father. It was a big reveal. I mean, well, that was kind of a bigger connection point between father and son. I do question, was Kylo ready to turn back until the light disappeared, or was the light disappearing just symbolism? With Starkiller Base, is a sphere tied into his as of yet unknown Sith prophecy? So I've asked these questions before, but this is just my question list. How did Maz get Luke's saber? I think this is a backstory ripe for a comic. Okay, so now I'm down to about my last set of bullet points. The Force Awakens and Rey. Yes, because of the lightsaber touching, but I think that Kylo really awakens the Force in Rey, which is ironic. The evil brings out the light in somebody. The bad brings out the good in somebody else. I think it was Kylo's pushing that really, really got Rey moved along and strengthened her resolve. Because until then, remember, she was running away. She didn't want it. She was avoiding it. Well, Kylo really kind of like just beyond jarring it, got her past that point of being scared and awakened it in her. The Force Awakens was everything nothing of the three prequels were for me. And I'm saying it. I'm not slagging the prequels, not hating the prequels, not taking away from your enjoyment of the prequels. I'm not saying that Disney should do a reboot or will do a reboot. Some people say they should. Some people say should they get rid of them. But to me, I'm still going to say that The Force Awakens was everything nothing in the three prequels were for me. The three prequels, canon, movies, an experience. I've watched them. I've enjoyed parts of them. I get it, I guess I view the prequels almost like the cartoon series. I mean, they're good. They're there. I love the cartoons. But see, that's what I'm saying. So, like, to me, the Clone War, cartoons. Rebels cartoons. Rebels, Clone Wars, about the same, and then the prequels underneath it. The prequels are like this distant part of canon for me. But a part of canon, nonetheless. But I just don't know of how critical the prequels are to understanding or appreciating what's in the Star Wars universe. I really don't. I think they're filler. I think the prequels could be treated, if you don't want to read the comics, I think the prequels could be treated the same. I don't think just because they exist you should see them. And I can't believe I said that, but I think now we have something. We have something to latch onto. We have something newer that works. You don't have to see the prequels to appreciate, in my opinion, to appreciate things in 7. You have to see the trilogy to appreciate 7, but I don't think I think the prequels are standalone. Because you don't need to see the prequels to appreciate the trilogy. The prequels are just like on their own. The Force Awakens happily has elements of A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back for me, which is fine. To me, it's a criticism of criticism, though, because a lot of criticism is, well, it's the same. But I've covered it before, Emily, it had to be. It's ironic that people who cling to the past are those who criticize Star Wars for trying to bridge the gap. And that, to me, is that, like, they're criticizing, but you're going to be critical no matter what you do. They cling to the past, and yet they complain that it's the same. But you're clinging to the past. Like, but it's not the same as the trilogy. Dude, you're not the same age as when you were when the trilogy was out, unless you're really, really young. You're at a different point in your life. That the filmmaking, the style, the everything was at a different point in time. Like, it's a timeless, it's a classic now. So it's got a different place in your head. Like, it's a classic. It's not just a good movie. It's just a classic. It's a part of you. It's a part of culture. So, to me, again, I'll say it. Ironic to me that the people who cling to the past are those who criticize Star Wars for trying to bridge the gap effectively. I believe that the Force Awakens was original, since for it to work, it needed to mirror themes of the original trilogy, not just to be a commercial success, but a fan success, and for a realistic story and characters. History repeats itself. The arrogance of evil, the immaturity of youth, these are cultural realities. They're mirrored in cinema, and I thought it worked. And I think perhaps The Force Awakens has disappointed a few because some characters didn't evolve or were involved like their inner child imagined, or like we remembered, or like we thought it was going to be. We thought it was going to... Jedi, that was it. That was it. Now we know. Now we have... This is what happened. This isn't a guess. This isn't like a some. It is a fantasy, but it's not a fantasy. It happened. It's canon. So maybe it's that people didn't quite experience things the way they wanted to, and that to me is like, well, what'd you expect? Throw away expectations, dude. Just take it for what it is, not for what you needed, what you thought it was going to be. Take it for what it is, not what you thought it was going to be. I expected this to be a Star Wars movie. That's what I expected. My expectations were met and exceeded. I thought it was a great movie. As I've said before, the fact that 3D melted away and it worked. It worked. I loved it. That I laughed. I cried. I had all these emotions. Good movie. The fact that I thought it ended too soon. Good movie. The fact that I can't wait for the next one. Good movie. Like everything about it screams good film for me. Good experience for me. Great. So that's my review. I'm not going to give it a score. In fact, my score may change over time after 8's released, after 9's released. Like I said, it's difficult to take on its own. And to recap what I said in the very beginning, because this is at the end, A New Hope was standalone intentionally. The Force Awakens was not. 7, 8, 9 should play better back to back than the other trilogy sets. It was. I loved it. Now, obviously, I'm talking 2 hours about it. I can't think of anything in this world that I want to talk about more than Star Wars, honestly. I started to write down some things that bothered me. I mentioned a couple things during this review, but Leia's hairstyle at the end, I thought it reminded me a lot of Bram Stoker's Dracula that was played by Gary Oldman with the butt hairstyle. I'm like, okay, I'll get the figure, but that kind of made me cringe in a negative way. I'm like, you could have done better. That style for me it didn't do it. I'm glad it only had a few minutes screen time, and I'm very disappointed that that's the character that they're promoting with figurines. Yeah, just okay. If you've not seen that film adaptation of Dracula, look up Gary Oldman Dracula. You'll know exactly what I'm talking about. What's his name? JJ has a soft spot for Bram Stoker's Dracula as portrayed by which I like that movie. Gary Oldman. Luke, and I thought this was funny. I'm not a complaint. Luke had more lines in the teasers than he did in the movie. Of course, he dropped a clue like "you have it," which he didn't say originally in Jedi. So there was a line that was adapted, which again could we know now that Rey's a Jedi. But is Rey a Skywalker? Who's Rey's mom? Was Rey trained before? We have all these questions, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with exploring these as topics of conversation. In fact, I cannot wait. Despite having talked about this for 2 hours, I cannot wait for doing my other reviews with the people that do Star Wars stuff. So I'll be doing more The Force Awakens review-like videos with other Star Wars content producers out there. No, this is great. I'm glad to have the chat here from live.pirillo.com. And by the way, I know I've got to get the list of patrons displayed. It's just that I get so involved with what's going on. Let me go ahead and pull over one of the presents that Santa Claus dropped off early for Jedi, the nesting doll set. There's a Force Awakens one too. We got that. She loves nesting dolls. There's only one set, the exclusive from Entertainment Earth, that we don't yet have. Before I get to questions, let me go ahead and pop over to the list of credits for the patrons who deserve all the credit. Because honestly, without them, I would not be able to do what it is that I do on a very regular basis. And I love doing what I do. And I love a lot of things, but as many of you know, Star Wars is absolutely my fandom. So feel free to ask questions if you're in chat. I will be getting to the texts that I've been receiving from my team to be able to answer questions during this live broadcast. This is probably going to go down in history as... Are you going to flip? Are you going to go back? You're not going to go back. Okay, so now I have to do this manually. I thought this flipped it, but I guess not. Okay, I apologize. I thought this was going to be ready. I'm not sure if the date is correct. It is not. It probably needs to be refreshed, and maybe the date will be correct. Ah, look at that. See? It's magical. You can become a patron. Head over to chrispirillo.com. You would have had my written review well ahead of time to know exactly where my head was at. I love talking. It's what I do. I could not have squeezed this review as craftily down to a few minutes because I wouldn't be able to cover everything I wanted to cover. And I honestly, people ask, what'd you think? I can't get it down to 140 characters. I can't. And I've seen people do it. I can't. I've got to talk, at length, and I want to talk even more. I've been busting at the seams to talk about this with somebody. I can't tweet things because I'm afraid. I don't want to spoil it for anybody. at all. I don't want to be in that position to spoil it for somebody. Although I will say, if you have not yet seen it, well, okay, you shouldn't have watched this video, but okay, maybe circumstances are beyond your control, but dude, opening weekend was it. Like, as far as I'm concerned. I will wait until the first of the year before, like, actively discussing things without labeling them spoilers. But I felt that this movie deserved a 2-hour review. I don't even think half the gadgets on the planet, 99% of the gadgets on the planet, they deserve a time and they deserve attention, and talking about tech is something that I do every day, but this deserved such deep attention because A, it means something to me, B, it means something to culture, C, it's going to last. This is it. The Force Awakens, that's it. This is going to be living on forever and ever and ever and ever, and these are my initial thoughts on the movie. I think the next quote-unquote official review I do on Episode 7 may very well be when 9 is released. I think my feeling is that's the time I'm going to be spending on doing a re-review of Episodes 7, 8, and 9. Well, okay, I won't be able to re-review 9, I guess. A re-review of 7 and 8 after 9's released. So, as I mentioned in my reaction video, like, if you thought I did a lot of Star Wars stuff before, you ain't seen nothing yet. You ain't seen nothing. I loved it before, but I'm telling you, The Force Awakens, what's interesting, and this is like a deeper, and I'm not going to say irony, but it kind of dovetails, The Force Awakens had a lot of fans. A ton of fans. There are a few people who are disappointed, but let's face it, they're probably disappointed in a lot of things. They may be disappointed because their characters didn't show up, or they thought that it was going to happen differently. I'm like, but it is what. Just enjoy it for what it is. Enjoy it for what it is. That's it. I mean, would I wanted something to happen differently? Yeah, but with anything, I can't think of anything out there that's perfect, even in Star Wars. Yeah, so Richard, I believe Snoke has a deep backstory that goes way, 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 way back. I think he's an ancient character. I really do. Whether we've seen like suggestions of him in the past or not. Ashton Twin said it ended way too soon. I now have a counter set for the next one at 522 days till then. No, Rogue One is next. Rogue One though is Star Wars. It's a story. It's going to be. Almost, I'm not going to say the prequels. It is a prequel to A New Hope, where the plot is get the Death Star plans. It is going to be, I guess they're saying, it's Star Wars, but it's not going to be Jedi related, which is kind of it's different for a Star Wars movie, but I think it stand, well enough on its own. We know what had happened, we just don't know how it happened. We don't know who was involved. So I'm looking forward to that. That's about a year from now, a little less than a year from now. Very excited. And then after Rogue One next year, then 6 months from then, we get the next Star Wars installment after Rogue One, or at least Episode 8. So I'm very much looking forward to anything Star Wars they push out there. I really do believe that, as I said before, I think Disney's going to really give serious consideration to cranking out a TV show. Several potential live-action TV shows, which of course I will be watching. You don't even ask. Like, are you excited for The Force Awakens? Oh, yes. So, as Kylo was talking to Han, I mentioned this earlier. This is when Helm's Deep Wah had become a patron, and I appreciate that. Ticket prices in the USA, average, I don't know. I whatever the ticket price was, I was going to pay it. And I'll be paying more. In fact, it's possible that when hopefully when Jedi's recovered and we can predict a sleeping pattern, Diana and I may have our first parental date, leaving a Jedi with Diana's mother at home, possibly a late showing of The Force Awakens. I want to have our first date as The Force Awakens. Diana wants to see the movie. I want her to see the movie because she's seen all the movies. You saw that play out in the vlogs a couple of years ago. Ashton Schwinn says, and the way they did the death with Chewie nowhere near Han was something else. Yeah, it was quiet, it was somber, but Chewie bounced back, and he knew his role as a co-pilot. I mean, it was just, there's so much. The Force Awakens was powerful in what it said. The Force Awakens was more powerful in what wasn't said. I mean, I'm that's a good tweet. I really believe that. I honestly believe that. Ashton Schwinn said, did anyone else notice Kylo hitting himself? Yeah, after he was blasted by Chewie, which took him down. And then, of course, fighting Finn, that kind of, took him down further. So it made the fight with Rey even more realistic. You've got this person who's got some abilities. Rey can hold her own. She's got a lightsaber, and Kylo's, he's hurt. He may be experienced, but he's hurt. So it took Kylo down almost to Rey's level. So it's going to be sloppy because, you've got one untrained person and a trained person who's hurt. everything added up. There was nothing unrealistic about that at all. Ashton says he thinks it was put in as a stress response to show him as not handling stress well at all. I think it was adrenaline. I think that's the reason why. Like, if you're bleeding and you're trying to, like, you're hurt and you're trying to, like, I can push through it. This anger. I'm gonna push through it. It may have been a stress response, but I think it was to pump up the adrenaline. Boom, 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 boom. Because your blood, you're bleeding, your body is hurting. Your adrenaline is pushing you through, and I think that was in my opinion, in my estimation, that would have been it. That's pretty much all I have. Not quite 2 hours later, but I was very happy to do this review for everybody, and now you don't have to ask. I've done it. I've answered this question, many questions. I will continue to ask or answer questions. If you have them, stay tuned, because I do, as I said in the beginning, I plan on doing other The Force Awakens discussions with other Star Wars YouTubers that I'll be reaching out to and coordinating things with in the very near future, because it's very fresh in our minds, and I'm very excited to do that, if only to have continued conversations and bounce off of one another to potentially come up with new insight as well as collaborative interests. So I'm not done talking about it.
Are you okay? The movie's out. Are you done talking?
No, there's another movie coming out, and there's plenty to talk about now. So, no. Still TLDR tonight? Yep, I'm still doing it. This is it. This is the full bulk of TLDR was that. Matt Palmer says, I'm hoping BB-8 becomes massively popular because I bought 2 Sphero droids in the hope of making a few pennies in profit. Oh, why'd you do that? Chris won't approve of the scalping behavior. I do not, Matt. Hold on to it. The Sphero BB-8 that has a very bent antenna if you're not careful with it, which is funny from the movies. Oh, your antenna's bent. Plink. I wish I could do that with this one. BB-8 is, trust me, you thought BB-8 was big before the movie? BB-8 is one of the more merchandisable characters from the movie. Oh, dude, trust me. BB-8 he ain't going away anytime soon. Mark my words. It is perfect. Perfect. Psst. Psst. Droid, please. Oh, man. Oh, thank you, Disney. Thank you. Anybody who had a question about Disney taking over, I think is, well, we now have our answer. And if you don't like it, you are in a minority. I guarantee that. It's fans are back. The Force Awakens in fans, I think, and this was good. We needed this. I didn't realize the prequels hurt so many people. They were hurt, despondent. It's a great word to use. Petulant, despondent. I'm expanding your vocabulary with every passing review. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to move on in life for now. I'm going to go talk about Star Wars a little bit more. I love you. I appreciate you. But at this point, I'm going to leave you to your own devices.